Welcome back to From the Couch Sports. My name is Connor and I'm your host. I want to talk about a few different things today. To kind of start off, I want to get into some of the NFL talk as of late, break down kind of a mock draft I've put together for the top 10 picks, um, pre NFL Combine and everything like that. And then we'll get into some UFC later and cover a little bit of the rumors as far as the quarterback market and what have you there. But first off, I want to kind of talk about this subject that's been kind of going around a lot lately. And the question right now, it's it's whether or not Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Fame player. And in my opinion, what happens with sports is we see something new, something flashy, and in the moment, um, we have recency bias. We act like what's happening now is the best that's ever happened before, or like you know talking like Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Famer. I don't think Stafford's a Hall of Famer. I think one great season in your career, apart from the good statistical seasons. I know he had a couple good years in Detroit, but never really being a top three QB in the NFL at a given time. I mean, you could probably even make an argument he's never even been top five. He's always been that, like, I don't know, I'd say he's in the 7 to 12 range typically every season. Maybe fringe top five in his best years, but like to say someone like that's a Hall of Famer simply because they had good stats and they had one good season, I think it's just a recency bias thing. We kind of get into the the call during Super Bowl Sunday. I think it was Chris Collinsworth that mentioned that the Rams' final drive was like a one of the most memorable drives in Super Bowl history. And the fact of the matter is, it wasn't. Um, the drive was kind of plagued by penalties towards the end of it. And don't get me wrong, it was a good drive. Cooper Kupp made a lot of nice plays on that drive, but to say this is like the greatest drive in Super Bowl history, or even one of them, it's kind of crazy. It's like totally recency bias, and that's what we get with the Stafford thing. I mean, just a couple years ago, Jared Goff took this similar team, the same team, to the Super Bowl himself, and he was very close to winning it. And I understand Goff is not the same caliber of quarterback as Matthew Stafford, but Goff was already in the picture, and he could have won a Super Bowl himself. So would we have started talking about Jared Goff as a Hall of Famer, or Joe Flacco, some of these other guys who win a Super Bowl but they're not all-time great players? And I think Matt Stafford has some of the pieces, and his career's far from over. So if he does make another run, win another Super Bowl, or even make another Super Bowl, like, we can get more into that conversation as he gets later in his career. But just going off of like saying that, him winning his first Super Bowl is solidification that he's a Hall of Famer, I completely disagree with that take. Um, just my opinion though. Everyone's right to their own. I think that, like, right now there's a lot of QBs better than Matt Stafford. Even when, like, Matt Stafford's best years with Calvin Johnson, I never really thought like, oh, he's the top three, top five even. So it's just a weird thing that people are bringing up, saying that he's a Hall of Famer all of a sudden, just because of this one thing. But kind of moving past this, I want to get into a little bit of NFL draft talk. I want to cover a lot of the draft this year. Now, before getting into this, I will fully acknowledge mock drafts are not very accurate, especially when you're making a mock draft before free agency, let alone before the NFL Combine. Like, something's going to happen at the Combine. Someone's going to go out there and, you know, put up crazy numbers, run a 4.3 when people weren't expecting it. Just there's always some, they call them Combine Warriors. Guy kind of coming out of nowhere who comes out and just puts up crazy numbers. Sometimes you got like some random lineman who's freakishly athletic, and you saw a little bit of it on the tape, but like seeing them in the measurements, it makes teams overdraft guys a lot. Like, I mean, we saw John Ross get drafted 8th overall. So, I'll acknowledge that they're not always accurate, but what I like about mock drafts is you kind of get a picture of, some of the fits that could go to your favorite team. And I, as a Jets fan, I look forward to checking out the mocks every year. My season's usually over pretty early, so I'm always watching college football for these reasons. So at the very least, I'll get into some mock drafts. We'll cover some more draft content as we get closer to the NFL draft. Once we get out of the NFL Combine, out of free agency and everything like that, we'll have a better idea of what holes these teams have, what directions they might go, and hopefully we can pick a good amount of the picks. But I'll just run through kind of like my top 10. I'm covering a lot of Jets, so we'll talk about the Jets' top 2 picks. But to get things kind of kicked off, the Jags are selecting number 1. I think Evan Neal is probably going to be the pick, and I know it could change. I know Kwanwu's really he's talked about in good light. A lot of people like him a lot too. And Evan Neal has kind of had I've seen some people online saying he might not be the best tackle prospect, but a guy who's played multiple spots on the line. He's like 6'7" with a football helmet on. He's 6'9", 6'10". This is a guy who's athletic for how big he is as well. And it's a coach that just came over from the Eagles who had a stud O-line, and that was key to their Super Bowl run. So I could totally see them going, let's take a key piece for our offensive line, protect Trevor Lawrence, let's build something right here. And you start off, you get Evan Neal, maybe not the top prospect in the draft, but he's certainly one of the best tackles. And pairing him alongside Lawrence for the future could be good for them. And then kind of moving into the second pick, I think Campbell in Detroit. He seems like some of these younger like defensive minded guys are, they care a lot more about the trenches, it seems like, than some other like outside positions like receiver or corner or something like that. So I think he's going to try to build in the trenches again this year. Go with Aiden Hutchinson. They can pair an elite defensive end on the defensive side of the ball. And then last year they had an elite tackle in Penei Sewell. So you're building your line on both sides of the football. And at the end of the day, that contributes quite a bit to winning football games. Aiden Hutchinson is also a phenomenal prospect. I'm curious kind of how he's going to measure at the combine. I've heard a lot of different things about how athletic he is. But just coming off of his last year at Michigan, he had an insane year, and he looks to be a pretty good prospect. And then number 3, another edge rusher. Depending on who you talk to, they kind of have Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau as a toss-up as far as who they think is the best. But in this scenario, like I said, none of the moves have happened, like quarterbacks that might change these mock drafts and everything. But the Texans can take Kayvon Thibodeau. They have a pretty weak roster right now, so just trying to get someone that they think can develop into one of the best picks in the draft, which Thibodeau might be able to, would be a good move for them. So just kind of going through the rebuild. If you can get a stud edge rusher, this could be a spot where they take another tackle as well. But they do kind of already have Laramie Tunsil penciled in at left tackle, so I don't know if they try to add to the O-line more at 3. They might want to do it later in the draft with the more picks they'll probably acquire when they trade Deshaun. But that's just kind of how I see it playing out right now, pre-everything. And then get into number 4, my Jets. I think at this point, with the way everything looks like, I think Ikwanwu is the pick from North Carolina State. Ike Ikwanwu. I think Joe Douglas and even Robert Saleh are kind of in that same mold of let's build up the front O-line and let's build the D-line. And, if there's a defensive end at this point, if Thibodeau or Hutchinson lands to 4, I think that's probably the pick for the Jets. But in this scenario, the way things played out, there's nobody like that available. So I think Ikwanwu can come in. If things don't pan out with Becton, he can come and start left tackle. I think things will pan out. I think Becton's the dude. He had a phenomenal rookie season, just had a freak injury year 2. So I think if he can come back, put it all together year 3, he can just kind of have a solid O-line like Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, McGovern at center, and then Equanwu, you could even put him at right guard. I know a lot of people have talked about that. Year 1, you start him at guard. After George Fant's done, you move him over the right tackle. He should be a good fit there. Great run blocker from, everything that I've seen and what people have said. And then this kind of opens to the 5th pick. Giants also have, so Jets and Giants have 2 top 10 picks. We'll kind of see how free agency and some of the things play out. I know the Giants have been rumored to be like possibly trading some of their players. They're not in the best cap space. But in this scenario, I have them taking Kyle Hamilton. I think most likely Jabril Peppers is going to leave. So they'll have a little bit of a hole at safety. And Kyle Hamilton might be the best prospect in this draft. He's kind of too good to pass up unless you have like a set position elsewhere you want to take. Like the Giants at this spot, ideally Equanwu or Neal would slide so they can take one of the top 2 tackles, or even an edge rusher. But sitting at 5, they're probably just out of the ballpark of getting any of those things done. So taking Kyle Hamilton, a guy that you can build the defense around. He's 6'4", super good athlete, and he's a ball hawk too. He's not just like a safety who plays a lot of linebacker. He's going to cover the field. He can make plays, that's for sure. That's all he did at Notre Dame. And him coming over to the Giants give the offense more opportunities to score points. I think adding a guy like that to your defense, while it doesn't help your offense immediately, it can pay off in the long run. And then get into number 6. This could be a spot where a QB goes. I've heard a bunch of mixed reviews on who the Panthers are going to take. I think right now Charles Cross is the safe bet. They can get a franchise tackle to kind of build the line. They've got weapons on the outside. We'll see what happens. I think they could be in the market for QB. And they could also make another swing at someone on defense. I know they've invested heavily in it in the last few years. I know I've seen some people mock Sauce Gardner at this spot. I don't see them going J.C. Horn last year and then Gardner this year. I guess it's possible, but I feel like Matt Rule is probably already on the hot seat, so him doing things like that I don't know. I don't see it happening. And then for them to take a QB this high, I don't think they have the patience for, a QB that you draft in this draft. Like, if you get a Malik Willis or a Kenny Pickett, they're going to bring him in, and the way the Panthers have ran things the last couple years is if they have any kind of struggle, they're just they're ready to move on. They give Sam Darnold opportunities, they give Cam Newton opportunities. I know Darnold kind of got hurt during the season, which had a big part to do with it, but PJ Walker, Cam Newton, kind of rotating QBs left and right. So, for those reasons, I don't think they take a QB unless they really fall in love with someone. But they probably would be in the spot to take the top QB, most likely. And then the Giants pick again, number 7. I could see, it just depends on like how much NFL teams are willing to draft a center. Tyler Linderbaum is supposed to be like one of the top 2-3 prospects in the class. A lot of people are saying he's a sure thing, the best interior line prospect since Quentin Nelson. But to me, I don't know. I just don't know if I see the Giants drafting a center at 7 overall. Maybe if they were to trade back, in the teens or something, I think it makes a lot more sense for these teams. So in this position, I think they go with George Karlaftis. They get a really good defensive end. He might not be as flashy as the other guys, but he's the step off between Thibodeau and Hutchinson to Karlaftis isn't huge. And bringing him and Hamilton, they can try to revamp this defense, put together a good defense while Brian Daboll is working on the offense. And then kind of that moves to pick number 8. The Falcons are in a weird spot right now because I don't see them drafting Matt Ryan's replacement unless they fall in love with a guy, which I just don't know if this is the draft class for that to happen. And then most likely they're going to trade Calvin Ridley from most of the rumors. So they could have a massive hole at wide receiver. And in this case, I've got them taking Garrett Wilson. Now, depending on who you talk to, there's kind of three consensus guys that nobody knows who's number 1, 2, or 3. But depending on who you talk to, they vary. It's Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and Treylon Burks from Arkansas. And in this position, I think Garrett Wilson slides similarly into the Calvin Ridley mold. I think he would be a fit in the offense pairing with a Kyle Pitts, more so than like a Drake London would be. And yeah, I guess like a Treylon Burks would be a good fit as well. But in this mock, I got Garrett Wilson going 8. And then the Broncos pick number 9. Now this is a pick I'm really unsure. I was really unsure about this because I don't know. I picked Jordan Davis, but I don't necessarily know if the Broncos would take Jordan Davis or even if he'll be taken this high in the draft. I think he is a very good defensive tackle prospect. He's a huge dude, and when he's on the field, really good athleticism for his size, and he's just dominant. But Denver is most likely going to trade this for a quarterback. So who knows what team is going to be drafting at this spot. If somehow Denver does draft, I think Jordan Davis could be a good fit. Last year they showed they got Patrick Surtain the second. They got a really stud corner. They want to continue to build that defense up and be a really dominant defense. They could go Jordan Davis. And then number 10, kind of pulling back to the Jets' last pick. This is the one we got via Seattle. I got Jermaine Johnson going at this pick. So Jermaine Johnson's kind of been rising up boards. I've seen him kind of going all over the place as early as 4, all the way down to like the mid to late teens. But Jermaine Johnson had a really good year at Florida State this year, and he had a great showing at the Senior Bowl. The Jets were able to coach opposite of him in the Senior Bowl, so I think it fits. They're able to add at 4. They get a stud guy on their offensive line, and then at 10 they get a starter on their D line. You pair him up with Carl Lawson coming back healthy, John Franklin Myers, and Quinnen Williams, and you got an incredible defensive line. And then you got more picks in the second round too. So if you want to go receiver, you can do that at that point. They could very well go with a corner or someone else like that. But in this scenario, I do think if you got a chance to get a really good edge rusher, you got to pull the trigger. But that kind of sums up the mock draft. I don't want to go too in detail. We'll do more like full 32 team mock drafts and or 32 pick mock draft and everything like that here in the future. I just want to wait till some of the free agency winds down. We can talk about some of the prospects. And then obviously things will change, so we'll just kind of play it like that. And then I want to talk about a couple other things. A big thing is that Carson Wentz is most likely going to leave. I did write an article kind of talking about, the way the Colts season went and, what could be leading up to this. From what it sounds like, the Colts are just willing to eat $15 million in dead cap space by getting rid of Wentz. And I'm not sure if they do end up trading him. He didn't have like a horrible season on paper, but when it mattered the most, he had stretches of games where he was bad and they didn't make the playoffs because of him. But a team that I could totally see him going to, and I honestly think would be a good fit, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he can come in, for Pittsburgh, they're desperate in need of a QB, but they have a lot of good pieces on their team. And they also don't seem like the type of team to be willing to trade a ton of picks and capital for, a star QB. So I could totally see them picking up someone like Carson Wentz, who actually has a similar playing style to like a younger Ben Roethlisberger. And he can come in and they're not going to be forced to thrust a rookie into the starting QB spot year one. They got a guy like Carson Wentz they can bring in even if he's not the long-term answer, he can probably be, a good bridge QB. Um, and we'll see kind of how things play out with that. There's a bunch of teams that are going to be in the market for a QB though, so we'll see how like the Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, those all play out, because ultimately those are going to matter quite a bit when it's all said and done to what happens with Wentz and some of these other guys like Kirk Cousins and whatnot. But kind of wraps up like what I wanted to talk about as far as the NFL goes. I want to get into some UFC. We These next couple weeks we got a couple interesting, fight cards. They're not pay-per-view events or anything like that. They're just the ESPN Plus cards. But the big headline as of today and yesterday is that Beneil Dariush was injured, so he's not able to fight in the main event next week. So this is basically set up Islam to fight Bobby Green. And, I like this for Bobby Green. The thing that's kind of unfortunate is he's not going to get a full camp. He's kind of thrust into his first main event against Islam, a guy who's probably just going to take him down, and I can see it being a similar fight to the Dan Hooker fight, who also came in on short notice to fight Islam. And then Islam's probably going to fight for the title belt. And it's like I understand, because he's probably going to be on, I think he's going to be on a 10-fight win streak at that point, 9 or 10 fights. So it's like he has the argument to do it, but it's also like, man, getting a win over Beneil Dariush would have done a lot more for any of the critics, that's for sure. And in my opinion, the Dariush matchup was very fun, interesting one to watch, because Dariush has a very good ground game as well. But the question in this fight is going to be, can Bobby Green keep the distance, stay off of his back basically, and can he make this a stand-up fight? If he can, I think it can be a very fun fight. It's a fight, so Bobby Green, if he can stay standing up, he can probably beat Islam. But if I were a betting man, Islam's probably going to take him down. If he gets him down early enough in a round, he's probably going to finish him. And I hope that Bobby Green's able to get another main event after this one, no matter what the outcome is. If he wins, like, he's going to be in the title picture right off the jump. But if he doesn't win, then I think it would still be nice to see him get a legit, main card event on a pay-per-view, or he's already done that a couple times, but like a headliner on an ESPN card again, one that he gets to train for and everything. He's put on a ton of great fights in the past, so we'll see. This one next weekend could be very fun as well. But that's just kind of how I see it. And then I want to talk about this Khamzat Chimaev thing real quick. I've seen a ton of people in the media, and I think I've seen DC saying this, like, just they're talking comparisons, Khamzat versus Kamaru Usman and Khamzat versus Israel Adesanya. And it's like, I get it. I see that Khamzat is super dominant. He's a guy that, every time we've seen him fight in the UFC, he's barely been touched, and he's just smashed everybody he's fought. He's got the one punch knockout over GM3, and then his last fight, the first fight against the ranked opponent, I believe, he took Yi down, choked him out. But like, my thing is, like, it seems like we're so quick to downplay like the dominant champions that we have right now. Like Usman and Adesanya both have one loss on their career. They're overall pretty dominant, have hardly lost in their entire career. And we're talking about Khamzat, a guy who's never fought a top 10 fighter, let alone a top 5 fighter. And we're talking about him like he's just going to go in there and smash Usman and then go choke out Izzy. And it's just like, if he does, we're seeing one of the greatest moments in MMA history. But like, I think we should pump the brakes on it a little bit and let's see him fight someone a little bit bigger. And then, like, let's not throw so much disrespect on the current champs as it is. Because Usman and Izzy are very dominant champs, and at the moment it seems like they're both in their prime. In MMA, almost everyone's bound to lose, unless you just straight up retire on top like Khabib did. But you know, to make it seem like by the end of 2022, Hamzat's gonna have both belts and all that, I think that's talking a little too soon. I want to see what he does if they actually get him in the ring against Gilbert Burns. I want to see what happens there, or the octagon. And then even at 185, I like to see him against a better, top ranked guy like, Marvin Vettori, a guy like that. What is Hamzat gonna do? Is he just gonna be so dominant that another guy who can stand up with him and wrestle, he's just gonna be that much better at those aspects of MMA? We'll see, but I want to see that before I, I talk about this guy as if he's gonna come in here and beat the champs. If he goes in he beats Gilbert Burns and he does it in dominating fashion, then 100% we can have the conversation, because Gilbert Burns was in there with Usman last year. So if he does that, then by all means. But until he does that, I don't want to talk about him as if he's like, he's just gonna come in here and smash everybody, which he might do. But I want to throw some more respect on the current champs as it is, and when Hamzat does it, let's see it. I'm really excited to watch him fight again. But I do think we need to pump the brakes a little bit, and we don't want to give him too much hype, and kind of disappoint ourselves if he doesn't win. But also I want to get into kind of this Saturday's fight card. With RDA and Rafael Fiziev falling off that fight falling off this card and being pushed back, I think a lot of people are, like, just kind of writing this card off. I've seen a lot of people say it's not a great fight card. And the funny thing is like sometimes these not great fight cards turn out to be really fun fight cards. And I think this could be it. I think the main event is a great fun fight. Johnny Walker and Jamal Hill are both tons of fun to watch. I think if in my opinion, Jamal Hill has the potential to be a superstar in this division. He's got great boxing, and I think he's probably going to go in there and beat Walker up. But Walker also has a really unique style, and if he's able to land some of his wild shots, he could do some damage too. But if he's not, and if he fights anything like the last fight I saw him against Thiago Santos, I think this fight could lead into Jamal Hill's hands. And I think Jamal Hill, this dude, he could be potentially, one of the funner fighters in the light heavyweight division kind of going forward. He's a great prospect. I want to see him climb the ranks. I think there's some fun kind of matchups at the top of the division if he can make it that way. If he gets this win, that would do a lot for him. And then this is also a main event, so if he main events and gets a nice knockout or something like that, then his next fight, he's fighting a guy maybe in the top 5, and then he might be able to capitalize on that, and then be right in the picture. He did have the tough loss last year, but he's been able to bounce back from it so far, and I want to keep watching how he performs. And then the co-main, I believe, is the Kyle Daukaus Jamie Pickett fight. This is a catch weight fight because Julian Marquez fell out. And Pickett kind of took this on short notice. This is going to be a fun fight too. I think Pickett, he probably has the edge as far as the power goes, but Daukaus is a ton of fun to watch. He's a really all-around fighter. He's coming off a really strange last fight. It was the one where he landed like a headbutt, and it wasn't on purpose by any means, but he landed a headbutt on Kevin Holland that like dropped him. And then the ref let them continue to fight until Daukaus choked him out. And then after he finished Holland, they like reran it, and then they changed the outcome as a no contest because of that inadvertent headbutt. So it was just a really strange fight. So I want to see what what he can do in this next fight. I'm excited to see this. And then we've got a fun heavyweight fight. Parker Porter, and he's fighting Alan Baudet, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the names. Um, I did watch Parker Porter's last fight against Chase Sherman. That was a fun fight to watch. These some of these heavyweights, they're just fun when you get them in the ring. Baudet's coming off of kind of two losses. He lost to Tom Aspinall, who's a ton of fun to watch. And then he lost to Rodrigo Nascimento, but Rodrigo failed the drug test afterwards, so the loss got overturned. So technically on his record, he's only coming off a one loss right now. And then we got Jim Miller, Nicholas Mata. Jim Miller, great legend of the sport, especially in the UFC. He's one of the longest tenured guys there. And this is a guy who's continued to fight late in his career, and not only just continue to fight, but he's continued to win. He's not one of those guys on like a big long losing streak or anything like that. He's even had a finish relatively recently, and he's going into it with a guy who's making his UFC debut, who's coming off of a contender win by decision, like in 2020. So basically, the guy hasn't fought in over a year, and his first fight is the long-term veteran Jim Miller. So we'll see kind of how's that debut go, and then I think it's just gonna be fun to watch Jim Miller. And then the last fight on the fight card I want to talk about is the Joaquin Buckley fight. Joaquin Buckley fights Abdul Razak Al Hassan. I'm sorry, I'm sure I messed that up. But Abdul was on a little losing streak, and then he got a crazy head kick KO in August of 2021. And then Buckley's the younger guy, and he's been through a bunch of different fights in the last couple years. He had the crazy knockout of the year, the spinning back kick on Impa Kansaganai, and he even had a fight against Kevin Holland. I think it was either last year or the year before. Jordan Wright and a few other guys, but most notably, he is gonna have the Detroit Survival Guide guy in his corner this weekend. That's crazy. That's gonna be fun to watch. We have seen some really odd things happen as far as cornering goes in MMA as of late. Last year, it was last year or 2020, where Mike Perry took his girlfriend. His girlfriend was his corner man. We saw Diego Sanchez have Joshua Fabia be a corner man. And I guess like the Detroit Survival Guide guy is probably a better corner man than either of those two. So I'm curious. Is he gonna tell him some crazy thing, and is he gonna do anything in the fight because of that, or is he gonna be like, just kind of standing off in the corner and just watching the fight, basically ringside? But a lot of fun fights to look forward to this weekend. Then we'll get into more next week. But there's a lot of fun fights there going on as well. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. If you enjoy the content, let me know. Let me know on your opinion. What fights are you excited about? What do you think? What's your take on the Matt Stafford situation and some of the other NFL topics we covered? But as always, thank you. Have a good one.